Lesson 8.5.13, Missing Dimensions, Finding Cylinder and Cone Dimensions. In this lesson, we'll find missing information about a cylinder or a cone if you know its volume and other information. All right, we're on page 52 in your notebooks. And our goal in the activity that we did today was finding missing information about a cylinder or a cone. Find missing information, like the radius or the height, about a cylinder or cone. If I know its volume and other information. Oops, that's an O. Up until now, we've been using formulas to find the volume, but those same formulas can be used to find other pieces of information. So we are going to use this space down here to find missing dimensions for each object, and we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So far, we've been writing answers in terms of pi, but it's really often that people round off and use 3.14 as an approximation for pi. But I just do want to remind you that as soon as you write an approximation, it's not perfectly accurate anymore. Okay, and we'll circle our answers. Now, before I even look at these, I want to give you some steps for what to do to use these formulas. First of all, decide what formula you need and write it down. Write out the formula you need. And by that I mean if it says you have a cylinder, then write the formula for a cylinder. If it says you have a cone, then write the formula for the volume of a cone. The second step is just substitute in the information you do know. Simplify it. Guess we'll call that a step. And then solve for the missing or unknown value. All right, so let's try each one of these things. Try and highlight as I go. I'm going to highlight down here real quick just to make sure this blue isn't too blue. Sometimes I highlight things and then I can't read what's under it. So step one is let's write out the formula you need. And if I go here to this first problem, it says a cylinder. Okay, well, then that's the formula I need. So let's come down here and do problem one. So the formula for the volume of a cylinder is pi times the radius squared times the height. Okay. So I wrote out the formula I needed. I should probably read this whole thing through. A cylinder has a radius of 4 centimeters and a volume of 80 pi centimeters cubed. And we're asked to find the height. We don't know what that is. But we're going to use our formula just to plug in the things we do know. Step two then is to substitute in the information you do know. So let's look at the information we are given. We're told we have a radius of 4. We're told we have a volume of 80 pi. All right, so let's go ahead and plug that in. All right, radius we're going to plug in right here for r. That's 4. Let's not forget to square it. And the volume is 80 pi. Okay, so 80 pi. That's the volume. That's what V stands for. All right, let me just write everything else down. There's my equal sign. There's pi from the formula. I already did the radius squared and h, the height. So we're trying to find the height. What is the height? Well, our next step is to simplify this all up. All right, so simplify. I'm going to go ahead and turn 4 squared into 16. 80 pi, I'm just going to write 16 pi, because mathematicians will laugh if I write pi 16. And if I'm solving for this missing value, I didn't highlight step 3 because there's really not much to do there. If it says, what is the height? Then this is what I'm trying to solve for. So we have to think back to the skills that we had back in our equation solving. And let's find h. Right now, h is multiplied to 16 pi. And I'm going to do a balancing move where I divide both sides of the equation. Here's my equal sign. I'm going to stay balanced. I'm going to divide by 16 pi. I'm going to leave the h alone. I don't want to cancel that out. So pi over pi is 1. 16 divided by 16 is 1. And all I'm left with on this right side of the equation is h, the thing I was trying to solve for, that missing value, the missing dimension of this cylinder. And on the left side, well, this is great. The pi's cancel out. And 80 divided by 16, I bet that's going to be something pretty, is 5. 80 divided by 16 is 5. The pi's canceled out. So my height is 5 centimeters. My cylinder is 5 centimeters tall. So that's how it's done. Write out the formula you need, substitute in the information you know, and then solve for the missing value. Let's do that again. So let's do number 2. Step 1, write out the formula you need. A cylinder, I'm going to do my highlighting all at once this time, with a volume of 405 inches cubed, has a diameter. Remember what we said about diameters? We don't need the diameter, we need the radius. So let's be careful with that. But we'll be able to find the radius. And again, we're asked to find the height. All right, let's do this. I'm going to start by writing out the formula I need. This is a cylinder again. Volume is equal to pi r squared times the height. The volume is 405. I'll put that right here by the volume. No pi this time. And pi times the radius is 5 inches. If they give you the diameter, don't use the diameter when you need the radius. So the radius is 5. Don't forget to square it. Okay, so we substituted in the information we know. Let's simplify that up a little bit. 405. 5 squared is 25. That's 5 times 5. And I have pi and h. And this time, I think I'm going to have to put in 3.14 for pi because it's not going to cancel out like it did in the other one. So let's do 25 times 3.14 times the height. Simplify that up. So we have 78.5 that we were asked to round to the nearest tenth. And now we just have to solve for h. Right now, h is multiplied to 78.5. So our balancing move is going to be to divide both sides by 78.5. It cancels on the right. And I'm just left with the height equals 405 divided by 78.5 is about 5.15. And if I'm asked to round to the nearest tenth, that's the 1 here, I have to look to this number And if it's 5 or above, I'm going to round this number up. If it's 4 or below, I'm going to leave that number alone. So I'm going to round this to 5.2. But this is just an approximation. And let's look at one last one. This one's got a cone. I'll highlight again as I go. So this third one, a cone with a volume. Here's the information we're given. A volume of 135 pi inches cubed has a height, we have the height this time, of 5 inches. And this time we're asked, what's the radius? This is going to be very different. We're going to have a lot of thinking to do with this one. But let's just follow these steps. That'll get us started anyway. Step 1, write out the formula you need. Well, this time the formula is for a cone. I'm going to scooch up a little bit. So the volume is equal to 1/3 pi times the radius squared times the height. And so we're going to plug in the information we need now. The volume is 135 pi. I have 1/3 times pi, and the radius squared, the height we have this time. Excuse me, the height is 5. All right, well, this time we have a cone, and it's got this stinky fraction in here. And I want to remind you that we have a way to clear the fractions. We have a balancing move where we can clear the fractions. Let me remind you, if I have all of this stuff on the right times 1/3, I can multiply it by 3. 3 times 1/3 is just 1. It'll cancel that 1/3 right out. I just have to remember to stay balanced on both sides. So let's go ahead and clear that fraction. On the left, I'm going to multiply 3 times 135. I don't want to multiply by pi just yet because I think it's going to cancel out. So 405 times pi. 1/3 times 3 cancels out. And I'm left with, I'm just going to move some things around. I'm going to write 5 pi r squared. Same numbers, I'm just rearranging them because the mathematician in me just can't stand it. Now I'm trying to find what r is. So my next balancing move, I'm going to divide by 5 pi. Right now, my yellow highlighted thing is multiplied to 5 pi, so the inverse of that is going to be dividing by 5 pi. And just like I'd hoped for, over on the left here, the pi's cancel out, and 405 divided by 5 is going to be 81. Oh, this is actually going to be really pretty. Now, the 5 and the pi cancel out, but I still have r squared. We're going to get into how to manage exponents a little better in a unit to come. But let me just remind you that r squared really means r times itself. So we just need to think of what number can I multiply by itself to get 81. And it turns out the number I can multiply by itself to get 81 is 9. 9 times 9 is 81. So that's going to be 9. Oop, I forgot the units on the other one. 9 inches. I'm going to go back to number 2 and write that that's inches as well. So those are some steps that should work. You're going to have to use your skills at solving equations as we work through. But these steps, I think, are going to help. So how are the strategies for finding the missing dimensions of a cone, which is the first two, and a cylinder, how are they the same and how are they different? Well, they're similar in that I can follow the same steps. Step 1, write out the formula. Step 2, substitute in the information you know. Step 3, simplify. Step 4, solve for the missing value. But the way they're different, the cone formula has a 1/3. So to eliminate that, just multiply both sides of the formula by 3. And that'll clear it out. Okay. So you are getting mighty fancy with your mathematical skills. Follow these steps and you'll be able to find missing information about either a cylinder or a cone as long as you know the volume and enough other information. Good luck on the practice tonight.